For 6 months, I learned how to breathe in a world that felt airless. The man I loved for 42 years was ash and memory, resting under a marble stone I visited every Sunday. My name is Nancy. I was a widow. Grief wasn't a storm anymore. It was the climate, a permanent gray chill in my bones. That day, I was in Costco. I was moving through the motions, paper towels, coffee, the mind-numbing checklist of survival. I was in the oil aisle, staring at a bottle of extra virgin, thinking of nothing, feeling everything. And then I heard it, a voice I'd know in the chaos of hell. It was complaining, lightly, about the price of beans. Highway robbery, it grumbled. My blood turned to ice. My heart didn't beat. It shattered against my ribs. Slowly, so slowly, the world tilted. I turned, and there he was. My husband, Thomas, 10 feet away, in a faded green t-shirt he'd never own, examining a can. Alive. The scar on his eyebrow from our first house, the way his hair curled at the nape of his neck, the slight slump of his right shoulder. Every cell in my body screamed his name. The bottle slipped from my hands. It exploded on the floor, a pool of gold spreading like a terrible omen. People gasped. I didn't hear them. I took a step, then another, my legs made of water. Thomas? The name was a ragged tear from my throat. He turned, his eyes met mine, and in them I saw not love, not shock, but a cold, practiced blankness. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said, and his voice was a knife twisting in the wound. "You've mistaken me for someone else." The floor dropped away. "No, it's me, Nancy. Look at me." He took a subtle step back, creating a chasm between us. "My name is Daniel Brooks. I think you're confused." He said it gently, like he was comforting a senile stranger. But his eyes, they darted, just for a millisecond, to the exit. Panic, raw and electric, shot through me. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers numb, pulling up our wedding photo, my young, smiling face next to his. I thrust it at him. This is you. That's us." He glanced at it, and there it was, a flicker, a micro-expression of pure, undiluted terror before the mask slammed back down. "A resemblance," he said, his voice steady now, cold. You should get some help." He began to walk away. My husband walked away from me. "Your hand," I cried out, desperate. "Your pinky." He instinctively curled his left hand into a fist, hiding the permanently bent finger from that long-ago fall. He didn't look back. He just walked faster, abandoning his cart, moving toward the cash registers like a man fleeing a crime scene. And in that moment, a new emotion burned away the grief. Fury, white-hot and clarifying. If that was my husband, breathing, lying, living, then who was in the grave I wept over? Who had I been mourning while he bought beans? The house with the green door. I followed him. My hands were steady on the wheel for the first time in months. I followed his dented white sedan through streets that grew unfamiliar, into a neighborhood of tidy, anonymous houses. He pulled into the driveway of a small green home. I watched, hidden, as he got out. The door opened before he reached it. A woman, maybe in her 50s, with a warm, easy smile, came out. She took a bag from him and kissed his cheek, a kiss that was routine, comfortable, domestic. Then 2 children burst out, crashing into his legs. "Grandpa, did you get the ice cream?" His laugh, God, his laugh, floated across the street and pierced me through the heart. It was the same laugh that had echoed in our home with our grandchildren. He shepherded them inside, this other family, and closed the door on the life he'd obliterated. I sat there. The tears that came weren't sad, they were scalding. 6 months of soul-crushing loneliness, the sleepless nights, the sympathy cards I'd cherished, the $90,000 crypt, all of it, a grotesque joke he was living at my expense. I took pictures, the house, the car, the license plate, my evidence. That night, my empty house wasn't a tomb anymore. It was a war room. I called my son Ethan. He came over, concern etched on his face. I showed him the photos. "Your father is alive." He paled. "Mom, grief does things." "Did you see the body?" I cut in, my voice like steel. He flinched. "The casket was sealed. The accident, it was bad. They said—" "Who said, Ethan?" I leaned in, watching his face crumble. "Look at me and tell me you didn't know." The silence that followed was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. It was confession, condemnation, and betrayal all in one. He broke. Sobs racked his body. "He made me promise. He said it would destroy you. The money, the business, it was all for us, for our future." Piece by horrific piece, the truth vomited out. The accident was staged. A dying, nameless man was used as a prop. My husband, Thomas, had faked his death to escape a divorce that would cost him millions, to flee to this ready-made second family he'd been nurturing for years. And my son, my only child, had helped him. He'd held me at the funeral, accepted my grief, and managed the estate that was now his, while giving me a pathetic widow's allowance. The love I felt for them both curdled and died in that moment. In its place settled something hard, diamond sharp and relentless, a need for reckoning. The reckoning. I didn't scream. I didn't collapse. I thanked Ethan for his honesty. I asked him to leave. And as the door closed behind him, I felt a terrifying calm. The grieving widow was gone. Someone else looked back at me in the mirror. Clara. I hired a private investigator, a grim, efficient man who asked no pointless questions. Within a week, he handed me a folder thicker than my Bible, bank statements in the name of Daniel Brooks, property deeds, phone records linking my deceased husband to my son right up until last week, a complete blueprint of the lie. I took it to a lawyer, a woman with eyes like a hawk. "This is fraud on an industrial scale. Identity theft, grand larceny, insurance fraud. We can bury him." But I didn't want him buried. I wanted him unmade. We planned not for a noisy scandal, but for a precise legal annihilation. We would freeze assets, alert authorities, and let the cold machinery of justice grind his new life to dust. But first, I needed to look him in the eye. Daniel Brooks is dead. I went to the greenhouse on a Tuesday afternoon. I knocked. The woman answered, her smile polite. "Is Daniel home?" "He's in the back. I'll get him." When he came to the door, the color drained from his face. "Nancy." It wasn't a greeting, it was a curse. "Hello, Thomas." I held out a manila envelope. "Or do you prefer Daniel now?" "What do you want?" he hissed, trying to keep his voice down. "I want you to explain to your wife," I said, nodding to the woman now hovering behind him, her smile gone, "who I am and who you really are." He tried to shut the door. I put my foot in the way. "Tell her, or I'll tell the police, the IRS, and the local news, starting now." The woman, her name was Linda, looked between us. "Robert? What is she talking about?" "His name isn't Robert," I said, my voice calm, clear, and carrying. "It's Thomas Prescott. He's been married to me for 42 years. He faked his death 6 months ago after stealing nearly $2 million from our shared life. The man you live with is a ghost, and the money that bought this house, that was my life." The horror on Linda's face was a masterpiece. She turned to him. "You told me your wife died. You said you were a widower." The facade, the lie he'd built his second life on, crumbled right there on the doorstep. He sputtered, reaching for her. "Linda, I can explain. It was complicated." "You have a family?" she whispered, the betrayal dawning. "You let me love you? You let my grandchildren call you grandpa? And you have a living wife?" I didn't need to say another word. I turned and walked back to my car. Behind me, I heard the sounds of his second life exploding. Shouts, tears, the slam of a door. The sound was not of victory, but of profound, echoing justice. The ashes and the embers. The aftermath was swift and brutal. The authorities, armed with my dossier, moved in. The Daniel Brooks accounts vanished. The businesses transferred to Ethan were seized for investigation. The tombstone bearing my husband's name was amended. "Here lies a lie." Ethan faced legal consequences for his role. I felt a pang for the boy he was, but no mercy for the man he chose to become. Some bridges, once burned, cannot and should not be rebuilt. Thomas was prosecuted. The man who wanted 2 lives ended up with none. As for me, I sold the house of memories. I reclaimed what was financially mine. I traveled to places I'd only ever dreamed of. I learned, at 68, how to live for the first time. The revenge wasn't in his ruin, though that was a consequence. The true revenge was in my rebirth. They thought they'd left me buried in the past, a weeping relic. Instead, they forged me into something unbreakable. I am no longer Nancy the widow. I am Nancy who survived. I am Nancy who chose herself. And that is the most powerful revenge of all. If this story of betrayal and cold-blooded resurrection made your heart pound, then you need to stay with us. Subscribe to Clara's Revenge now. Hit that notification bell because every week we dive deep into the stories of those who were wronged and the breathtaking moment they decided to fight back. Your justice awaits. Subscribe.